Sit back, relax, and welcome to Reading Hours. Today's book is The Witcher, Sword of Destiny by Andrzej Sapkowski. Please let us know in the comments from where you are watching, or if there is a book you want us to summarize in future. Before The Witcher became a global fantasy phenomenon with blockbuster video games, a Netflix series, and a sprawling fan base, it existed as a powerful literary world created by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski. Sword of Destiny, originally published in 1992, is the second collection of short stories in the Witcher saga. And while it technically follows The Last Wish, its emotional and narrative stakes delve even deeper into Geralt of Rivia's complicated fate, introducing key characters and ideas that define the heart of the entire series. What makes Sword of Destiny particularly vital is its bridging function. It links the earlier monster hunting adventures to the epic saga that follows in Blood of Elves. It's here that we truly witness the seeds of destiny being sown, especially in Geralt's relationship with Ciri, the child of surprise, whose presence changes the very purpose of the Witcher's life. Themes of love, loss, identity, and choice are explored through morally gray characters and stories that challenge traditional heroic arcs. Sapkowski's dry wit, rich folklore influences, and philosophical undercurrents set this book apart, earning it a respected place in modern fantasy literature. Controversially, some fans argue that Sword of Destiny should have been the first book in the reading order, because it introduces pivotal characters like Ciri and deepens the emotional stakes earlier on. Whether one agrees or not, few can deny its critical importance in shaping The Witcher's deeper narrative. The collection's tone ranges from whimsical and romantic to grim and tragic, mirroring Geralt's own internal conflict, a mutant bred to kill monsters, yet increasingly drawn toward human emotion and connection. With that in mind, let's dive into the immersive world of Sword of Destiny, beginning with its first story, where destiny stirs, not as a divine force, but as something earned, resisted, and sometimes misunderstood. Beneath the ancient trees of Broccolin Forest, the air is thick with mist and danger, and few who enter ever emerge. For most travelers, it is a place of death. For Geralt of Rivia, it is the place where fate begins to whisper louder than ever. The story opens with Geralt escorting a merchant's emissary named Freixenet into the forest. Their goal is both diplomatic and dangerous. Freixenet carries a message for the Dryads, the reclusive and warlike female warriors who defend the forest. But Geralt senses this journey isn't what it seems. As they penetrate deeper into the woods, something primal begins to stir. It isn't long before arrows fly, and Freixenet's company is attacked. Geralt survives, but barely. Wounded and exhausted, he's captured by the Dryads and taken to Ithne, their queen. The Dryads, distrustful of men, especially Witchers, regard Geralt with suspicion, but there is a complicated history between him and Broccolin. He has passed through these woods before, and once helped the Dryads in their war against humans. That debt earns him a temporary stay of execution. It is here, amidst the tension and broken treaties, that Geralt meets a young girl named Ciri. She's precocious, willful, and utterly out of place. A princess by blood, the granddaughter of Queen Callanth of Cintra, Ciri was on her way to be married for political reasons when her caravan was ambushed. She fled into Broccolin, escaping the fate planned for her. The Dryads intend to make her one of their own, but Geralt's arrival complicates matters. There's something about Ciri, something that resonates with him deeply, though neither of them can yet name it. Their conversations are sharp and endearing. Ciri, despite her age, holds her own against the brooding Geralt, teasing him and pushing his patience. But beneath their banter lies something profound. The law of surprise, an ancient custom binding Geralt and Ciri, hangs between them like a shadow. Years ago, Geralt saved the life of Dunny, Ciri's father, and invoked the law of surprise as his reward. What you already have but do not know. That surprise turned out to be Ciri, unborn at the time. Geralt once rejected that destiny. Now, standing before her in Broccolin, he wonders if fate is offering a second chance. Ithne sees it too. Though proud and fierce, the Dryad Queen recognizes that Geralt's bond with Ciri is no accident. She allows them to leave together, though not without warning. Destiny may be patient, but it is not kind. Geralt departs with Ciri, her hand nestled in his, but the Witcher remains torn. He insists he doesn't believe in destiny, that he will not claim her, not yet. He walks away, leaving her in the care of her guardians, pretending not to hear her call after him. The next story carries us to the edge of the Yaruga River, where Geralt is reunited with Dandelion, the irreverent bard who has become both companion and chronicler of the Witcher's exploits. They attend a festival celebrating the harvest of a rare sea creature called the Zerrikanian pearlfish. As they mingle among the exotic revelers, merchants, warriors, illusionists, the tension between Geralt and his own feelings rises. He claims neutrality in all things: politics, love, war. But Sapkowski paints a different picture. Geralt is increasingly haunted by his choices, especially regarding Yennefer of Vengerberg. Yennefer, sorceress, lover, enigma, returns to Geralt's life not with affection, but with fire and fury. The passion between them is undeniable, but so is the pain. They are like opposing forces, forever drawn together, yet always colliding. Their reunion is both tender and tragic, filled with unsaid truths and veiled regrets. Dandelion watches from the sidelines, offering humor and commentary, but he too knows something is unraveling. Geralt is changing. Or perhaps he always was different, just pretending to be a monster so the world wouldn't demand too much of him. In these early tales, Sapkowski begins weaving the real magic of Sword of Destiny. It is not in the monsters Geralt slays, nor in the spells cast by mages, but in the relationships that bind people, however flawed, to one another. Ciri's innocence, Dandelion's loyalty, Yennefer's torment, and Geralt's stubborn resistance to fate are all threads in a larger tapestry. The questions linger: can destiny be outrun? Is neutrality truly possible? Or does the heart, no matter how hardened, always find a way to guide the sword? The trail winds onward into a world where legends, where human faces and choices bear the weight of prophecy. Geralt, forever chasing monsters both real and metaphorical, finds himself once again drawn into the tide of human affairs, this time not with sword in hand, but with a heart unsure whether to open or harden further. The next story unfolds in a place unlike the wilds of Broccolin or the bustling river markets. It begins on a road where fate appears in the form of a dragon. Word spreads across the land like wildfire. A green dragon has made its nest in the mountains of Urchin, hoarding treasure and threatening villages. Naturally, where there's a dragon, there's coin, And where there's coin, there are adventurers. Mercenaries, mages, and would-be heroes all descend on the region, hungry for gold, fame, or both. Among them is a curious fellowship, Geralt, Dandelion, a nobleman named Three Jackdaws, a dwarven crew led by Zigrin, and a pair of boisterous dragon hunters known as the Crinfrid Reavers. But what makes this journey strange from the start is the presence of Yennefer. Yennefer's appearance is as sudden as it is unsettling. The air between her and Geralt crackles with unresolved tension. Their last parting had left wounds not yet healed, and their reunion brings no comfort. Yennefer claims she's here for the dragon's treasure, but beneath her words lies another truth, one Geralt cannot quite decipher. Is it power she seeks, or escape from the memories they forged and fractured together? The journey toward the dragon's lair is long and grueling. The group moves through dangerous terrain, bickering over who will slay the beast and how they'll divide the spoils. The Reavers boast of their past kills. Zigrin grumbles about humans and their foolishness. Dandelion, ever the bard, flirts with death and decorum in equal measure. And Geralt remains silent, watching, always calculating. He has no interest in killing dragons. In fact, he's known for his rare refusal to do so. To him, dragons, majestic, intelligent, and endangered, are not monsters but marvels. Three Jackdaws, the nobleman in their midst, eventually reveals his true identity. He is Villentretenmirth, a golden dragon in disguise. His presence in the group is not to claim riches, but to protect his kin. The green dragon in the mountains is a she-dragon, wounded and pregnant, and Villentretenmirth has taken it upon himself to defend her. The revelation stuns the company. The Crinfrid Reavers rage at the deception. Yarpen mutters about cursed luck. Yennefer's ambitions falter, and Geralt quietly sides with the dragon. A battle erupts fierce and fast. The Reavers fall to the golden dragon's might. Yennefer, reckless and proud, unleashes her magic, but Villentretenmirth bests her. Geralt, caught in the chaos, fights not with the intent to kill, but to stop the killing. In the end, the golden dragon spares them all, offering a warning rather than vengeance. He tells Geralt something that lingers, that the Witcher's heart is full of love, though he hides it well, even from himself. Afterward, Yennefer lies bruised and broken, her pride shattered more than her bones. Geralt tends to her wounds in silence. The mountains are quiet now, save for the wind and the memories that settle between them like mist. They speak not of dragons, not of spells, but of each other. Geralt admits, softly, painfully, that he loves her. Yennefer, in turn, reveals her own fear, that she is incapable of love, that something inside her is irrevocably broken. They kiss, but it's not the kiss of fairy tales. It's the desperate, uncertain gesture of two people trying to make sense of what they feel and whether it can survive the world they live in. Later, as they part once more, nothing is resolved. Geralt walks away with Dandelion at his side, pretending he hasn't left a piece of himself behind. Yennefer watches from a distance, knowing that the bond they share is both their salvation and their curse. Time passes. Another story begins, this one beneath the golden autumn sky, where the winds carry the scent of sea salt and fading flowers. Geralt finds himself in the coastal town of Ebbing, drawn not by monsters, but by a sense of unease he cannot explain. The locals whisper of mermaids and sea devils, of strange lights under the waves. But what truly pulls Geralt into this tale is a different kind of call, a longing for something he's never quite allowed himself to chase, a place to belong. He meets a man named Istred, a sorcerer with a sharp mind and a colder heart. Istred, too, is connected to Yennefer. The revelation stings. They speak of her with veiled barbs, each staking their own claim to a woman neither can truly possess. But Yennefer is not an object, and she makes that painfully clear. She arrives in Ebbing like a storm cloud, beautiful and dangerous, and the three of them, Geralt, Istred, and Yennefer, become trapped in a triangle of emotion and ego. Yennefer demands a choice. She's tired of being a shadow flitting between two men who claim to love her but fear what that love means. She asks Geralt to fight Istred for her, not with swords or magic, but with conviction. Geralt walks away, not out of cowardice, but because he knows no one can win such a fight. Love, if it exists between them, cannot be proven on a battlefield. It must be chosen freely, not claimed. Yennefer is furious. Istred, too, leaves with bitterness in his eyes. And Geralt, once again, is alone. The sea rolls on. The town returns to its routine, and Geralt moves forward, heart heavier than before. He doesn't understand Yennefer. Perhaps he never will, but something inside him is shifting. For the first time, he begins to question not just his place in the world, but whether the world needs witchers at all. Each of these stories in the Sword of Destiny builds a tension not of plot, but of identity. Geralt is no longer just a slayer of beasts. He is a man caught between what he was made to be and what he might become. Destiny has begun to show its hand, not in grand gestures, but in small, painful moments of connection and loss. And though Geralt refuses to believe in it, destiny is not done with him yet. The days are getting shorter, and the winds colder, as if the very world senses that change is near. Geralt rides through lands growing more unfamiliar, not because the geography is strange, but because something within him is shifting. There is a restlessness in his soul now, a tension between his purpose as a witcher and a quiet yearning for something more, something not easily named. Fate has begun to curl its fingers around his path, no matter how much he pretends not to notice. His travels bring him to a place where fortune and filth lie side by side, a town straddling the edge of civilization, where poverty and excess walk hand in hand. It is here that he's drawn into a new story, one that begins not with the scent of monsters or coin, but with the cry of a child. A caravan has arrived in town, traveling players and merchants hawking their wares and talents, weaving music, color, and illusion into the drab streets. Geralt is not interested in the fanfare until he sees her, a small girl, wild-eyed and strange, weaving through the crowd with a grace far too precise for her age. She watches him with unnerving intensity before vanishing behind a cluster of tents. Something about her unsettles him, not in fear, but in recognition. Though he's never seen her before, he cannot shake the feeling that he's known her all his life. But this is not where the tale truly begins. It begins in the Skellige Isles, where the sea crashes violently against jagged cliffs, and the air is thick with salt and superstition. Geralt has been hired to deal with a beast that's been terrorizing coastal villages. The contract is straightforward, at least on the surface. But as with most things in his life, what seems simple often hides deeper truths. The creature in question turns out to be a Zeugl, mutated by pollution and magic, its body grotesque and its hunger insatiable. It lurks beneath the docks and drags people under like a curse. Geralt dispatches it with grim efficiency, but the aftermath leaves him weary. The people cheer, coin changes hands, and yet there is no satisfaction, no relief, just the hollow rhythm of survival. Back in town, Geralt crosses paths with an old acquaintance, Mousesack, the druid advisor to Queen Callanth of Cintra. Mousesack doesn't mince words. He has come looking for Geralt not because of monsters, but because of a child of destiny. Queen Callanth, fierce and politically shrewd, has summoned Geralt to her court under the guise of a feast. The real reason becomes clear quickly. Her daughter, Pavetta, is to be betrothed, and suitors from across the continent have arrived, hoping to win her hand and Cintra's crown. Among them is a mysterious knight named Dunny, cloaked in armor and shadow. When he speaks, his voice echoes with enchantment, and when his helm is removed, the court recoils. His face is cursed, twisted by a spell that makes him resemble a beast. But Dunny has come not only to claim Pavetta's hand, but to invoke the law of surprise, a custom as old as the Elder Blood. Years ago, Geralt had saved Dunny's life. In return, Dunny offered what he had but didn't yet know he possessed. That surprise turned out to be Pavetta, though Geralt had never known it until now. Yet fate, ever more tangled, reveals a new twist. Pavetta is already in love with Dunny. Their union is not forced, but chosen. And that love is powerful, so powerful it unleashes a magical tempest during the feast, nearly tearing the hall apart. Plates shatter, windows burst, guests scream. And through it all, Geralt remains still, watching chaos spin from the simplest thread of truth. Destiny does not ask for permission. When calm returns, and Queen Callanth sees that her daughter truly loves this cursed knight, she relents. Dunny and Pavetta are to be wed. The curse is broken in the process, and Dunny's beastly form fades, revealing the man beneath. The court erupts in uneasy applause. All is well, it seems, but Callanth turns to Geralt, eyes sharp. She reminds him that he too is bound by the law of surprise. Dunny insists on offering it in return. Geralt hesitates, perhaps out of weariness, perhaps out of curiosity, and accepts. He claims the child that will be born to Pavetta and Dunny. Whatever child comes from this union, he says, that will be his. He leaves Cintra shortly after, haunted not by monsters, but by what he's just done. He tells himself it was a joke, a meaningless tradition, that he has no intention of taking a child. That fate doesn't exist. But beneath those lies, something stirs. A sense that the path he walks is narrowed, that he is no longer moving forward alone. Years pass. The world darkens. War brews across the northern kingdoms. Elves and dwarves are being driven from their lands. Old magic is being hunted down. And through it all, Geralt continues to do what he's always done: travel, fight, survive. But his dreams become filled with a child's laughter. A girl with ash blonde hair and emerald eyes. He tells no one, not even Dandelion. But he begins to search quietly for rumors of a child born to Dunny and Pavetta. He doesn't know her name, but he knows she exists. And then, one day, he hears it spoken casually in a tavern passed like gossip. The child has vanished. Her name is Cirilla. Ciri for short. The lion cub of Cintra. It is in that moment that Geralt knows the truth he's long denied. The child is his. Not by blood, not by law, but by destiny. The Witcher's path, long guided by steel and survival, now curves towards something he never expected to find: family. Not forged in fire, but in fate. The river winds through the forest like a silver snake, cutting through silence and time. Geralt rides beside it, his mind far away, haunted not by monsters this time, but by the child whose name now lingers in his thoughts like a spell, Cirilla. Ciri, the lion cub of Sintra. The girl promised to him by destiny, vanished into smoke and rumor, lost in the flames of a war that has already begun. The northern kingdoms grow uneasy. Borders shift like sand, alliances crumble under the weight of whispered threats. Nilfgaard has risen, a black sun over the south, cold and merciless. Geralt has never concerned himself with politics. Wars are for kings and armies, not witchers. But this time feels different. The war is not coming. It has already arrived. And even he cannot walk untouched through its path. The trail leads him to Broccolin, a forest both ancient and angry, ruled not by men but by dryads, fierce, proud warriors, bound to the trees and soil of their sacred land. Few who enter Broccolin ever return. It is a place of exile, of survival, of quiet vengeance against the world that has driven them to the brink. Geralt has passed near its borders before, but never entered. Until now. The air changes as he crosses the tree line, thick with pollen and old magic. The canopy swallows the sky. Sounds of the outside world vanish, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the silent eyes watching from the branches above. The dryads are not pleased to see him. They emerge like shadows from the underbrush, bows drawn, speaking in a language older than the kingdom of men. Geralt raises no weapon. He is not here to fight. He is here for a girl. He did not expect to find her here. The child, pale and thin, stands beside one of the dryads, her chin raised in defiance despite her bruised knees and torn dress. Her hair is matted, her eyes a startling green. And when she sees him, truly sees him, it is not fear or wonder that floods her face. It is recognition. Her name is Ciri. She had escaped the fall of Sintra, fled through smoke and flame, chased by Nilfgaardian soldiers and twisted fate. She had run for days through wild terrain, guided by little more than instinct and stubbornness, until she stumbled into Broccolin's arms. The dryads, suspicious of outsiders and indifferent to the affairs of men, took her in. She was to drink the waters of Broccolin, a ritual that would erase her past and bind her forever to the forest. But something stopped them, something ancient and powerful, something they could not explain. Ciri had dreamed of a man with white hair and yellow eyes. Now that man stands before her, flesh and blood. He speaks gently, though his voice is tired. She listens, though her pride shields her like armor. The dryads do not trust him, nor does Ithne, the forest's matriarch. She questions his motives, his right to claim the girl. Geralt says nothing of destiny, only that he has come to bring her to safety. He speaks not as a witcher, but as something else, as someone who feels the invisible bond that has tied their fates together long before either of them understood it. Ciri refuses to drink the waters. The dryads relent, uneasy but resigned. Something about her has unsettled even them. Something too large, too entangled with forces they cannot fight. Geralt takes her hand, and for the first time in a long while, she does not pull away. They walk out of the forest together, not as strangers, not quite yet as family, but as two pieces of the same puzzle finally placed side by side. The road back is long, and Ciri fills it with questions. She speaks of her dreams, of the burning city, of her grandmother, Queen Kellanth, who died with a sword in her hand. She does not cry when she speaks of it. Geralt watches her, marveling at her strength and fearing it in equal measure. The world will try to break her. He can already see it circling like a pack of wolves. They stop by a lake one night, the fire crackling low as stars wheel above them. Ciri asks if she will become a witcher. Geralt tells her the truth, that women have never survived the trial of grasses, the brutal process that creates witchers. She shrugs and says maybe she'll be the first. He doesn't laugh. Instead, he tells her stories, not of monsters, but of people, of choices made and paid for. She listens closely, curled in her cloak, her eyes never leaving him. Something stirs in him then. Not the cold logic of the Witcher, but something warmer, more fragile. The memory of hope, of a life beyond coin and contracts. He knows it cannot last. He knows that destiny is never kind. But in this quiet moment by the fire, with Ciri fast asleep beside him, he dares to imagine it anyway. They reach a town days later, a small trading post on the edge of war-torn lands. Geralt leaves Ciri with a trusted merchant woman while he seeks provisions. When he returns, the merchant is frantic. Ciri is gone, taken. Panic crashes through him like a wave. He searches the town, questions guards, corners thieves, threatens drunks. Nothing. No one saw anything. And then a trail, a set of small footprints leading into the woods. He follows them deep into the trees, heart pounding like a war drum. He finds her, standing alone in a clearing, unafraid, waiting. When she sees him, she smiles. "I knew you'd come," she says, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. And it is. Because despite everything Geralt has told himself about detachment, neutrality, destiny, he knows now that she is not just a child he's sworn to protect. She is his destiny, his family, and nothing will take her from him again. The moon hangs low, its pale light spilling over the land like a forgotten memory. Geralt leads Ciri through a forest on the outskirts of a village, the sound of their footsteps swallowed by the deepening night. The girl is quieter now, her mind weighed by the revelations of the past few days, by the pull of destiny and the strange connection that ties her life to his. Her questions still come, but they are fewer now, tinged with the uncertainty of someone too young to bear the full weight of the world, yet too old to ignore it. Geralt knows what it is to be burdened by fate. He knows the sharp edge of a destiny forced upon him. And yet, he cannot shake the feeling that Ciri's path will be different. There's a strength in her, a fire in her eyes, that reminds him of the fierce love for life he once had, before his world grew darker, before the monsters and the bloodshed became more than a daily battle. She is a child of destiny, yes, but there is something about her that sets her apart, something that makes Geralt question the very essence of what it means to be a witcher. He remembers a time when he too was young, when the world was still filled with color and warmth. A time before the trials, before the mutagens twisted his body and soul into something both more and less than human. The Witchers are warriors, but they are also solitary, haunted by their creations, cursed with a need for detachment. Geralt has lived his life as a sword for hire, a hunter of monsters and men, but with Ciri, things are different. With her, he feels the stirrings of a love he thought he had long buried, an unspoken bond that pulls at him with a force he cannot ignore. Their journey takes them through villages torn by war, the lands now a shadow of what they once were. People look at them with distrust, the specter of Nilfgaard looming ever closer. It is a time of uncertainty, of shifting allegiances and bitter feuds. The south has fallen, and the north braces for the inevitable. Geralt cares little for politics. He has always preferred the quiet of the wild, the solitude of the road. But in Ciri's company, even the bleakest lands seem less cold. They share their meals beside the fire, their conversations light, filled with stories of old and dreams of the future. But the peace is fragile. One evening, as they rest in a forest clearing, a sound breaks the quiet, a rustling in the bushes, the snap of a twig underfoot. Geralt's hand instinctively goes to his sword, his senses sharpened. Ciri looks up, startled, and for the briefest moment, fear flickers in her eyes. But Geralt reassures her with a quiet word. He is a witcher, and the monsters that prowl these lands are no match for him. Yet, what emerges from the shadows is not a monster, but a man, a familiar face from Geralt's past, one he hoped never to see again. It is Jaskier, the bard, the one person Geralt has allowed to remain in his life, despite the musician's incessant singing and carefree demeanor. The bard's presence is a reminder of the world Geralt has long since abandoned, the world of laughter, joy, and the occasional song that could lift his spirits. Jaskier's charm is infectious, and despite Geralt's initial annoyance, there is a part of him that finds comfort in the bard's irrepressible nature. But there's no time for catching up. The war is coming, and Ciri's safety must remain Geralt's focus. Jaskier's visit is not entirely by chance. He's heard rumors of a gathering of Nilfgaardian spies in the area and has come to warn them. The time for wandering freely is over. The child must be protected, and Geralt knows he cannot do it alone. Together, the three of them move forward, each carrying their own burdens, their own secrets, and yet there is an undeniable bond between them. Jaskier is a reluctant companion in this journey, more interested in the tales and the women along the way than the threats that shadow them. But even he cannot deny the gravity of their mission. They make their way to a nearby fortress, a place of safety, or so it seems. There, they meet with an old ally of Geralt's, a sorceress named Yennefer. The tension between them is immediate and palpable, an unspoken history hanging thick in the air. Yennefer is a woman of power, intellect, and beauty, but also a woman of many contradictions. Geralt's past with her is a complicated one, filled with love and regret, magic and anger. They have crossed paths before, but it has never been a meeting without friction. This time, though, the urgency of the situation overshadows their personal differences. Ciri is not just a child, she is a key in the war to come, a piece in a game of power that no one fully understands. Yennefer takes Ciri aside, and Geralt watches from a distance, his heart heavy with the knowledge that the girl is no longer entirely his to protect. She has already begun to form bonds with others, to discover her place in a world that seems intent on consuming her. Yet, there is a part of him that knows that no matter how far they run, no matter how hard he tries to shield her from the darkness of the world, Ciri's destiny is hers alone to shape. In the midst of this turmoil, an unexpected visitor arrives, a creature of the night, half human, half beast, a monstrous being whose appearance sends shivers down Geralt's spine. The creature is an emissary, a warning from the powers that be. Geralt has dealt with many monsters in his time, but this one is different. It is not a beast driven by instinct, but one driven by purpose. It speaks of the coming storm, of the battles yet to be fought, and of a prophecy that will change the world. The creature's words are a heavy burden, and Geralt feels the weight of them in his bones. The world is changing, and Ciri will be at the heart of it. The prophecy has already begun to unfold, and there is no stopping it. The only choice left is how they will face the storm together. As they prepare to leave the fortress, Geralt's thoughts are a whirlwind. He knows that they cannot remain here, that they must move, always moving, always running. But there is a sense of finality in the air, a sense that whatever happens next, Ciri's path is already set in motion. And Geralt will follow her, even if it means walking into the jaws of fate itself. The road is long, stretching out before them like a winding thread through the darkened landscape. The path Geralt and Ciri follow is rough and treacherous, the terrain unforgiving, mirroring the uncertainty that looms over their every step. With every passing day, the weight of their journey becomes heavier, more palpable, and Geralt feels the tension building between him and the girl. A tension that is not born from anger, but from the unspoken truths they both understand too well. Ciri's destiny is no longer just a vague concept whispered in the winds. She is at the heart of it, her every step now a part of the grand design. And Geralt's role as her protector has become a burden, one he does not always feel equipped to bear. As the days stretch into weeks, the two find themselves in the midst of a forest, the towering trees around them casting long shadows under the pale moonlight. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, and the distant sound of wildlife, crickets chirping, the occasional rustling of branches as animals move through the underbrush. Yet, despite the natural beauty of the world around them, Geralt is constantly alert, his instincts sharp. The world they live in is not one of peace, and every corner hides a threat. Every peaceful moment is a fragile thing. The monsters of the world, both human and beast, are always waiting to strike. Ciri, ever the curious one, wanders ahead, her footsteps soft and light, almost inaudible against the forest's ancient ground. Geralt watches her, his sharp gaze never leaving her figure as she navigates the woods with the ease of someone who has grown up in these very forests. She is strong, even though she doesn't always realize it. Geralt knows that she is far more than she seems. Her powers, her potential, her destiny, all of it swirling around her, shaping her into something much larger than herself. Their journey is interrupted by a chance encounter, one that will change everything. A figure emerges from the shadows, a woman with silver hair and eyes that gleam with power, a sorceress, one of the most powerful Geralt has ever met. She introduces herself as Yennefer, a name Geralt recognizes all too well. Her arrival stirs something within him, a mixture of longing, resentment, and desire that he has spent years trying to bury deep within himself. Yennefer is not just another sorceress. She is his past, his love, his pain. Theirs is a relationship that has always been tangled, complex, and filled with both passion and sorrow. Yennefer's arrival brings with it a rush of emotions for Geralt, emotions he would rather not deal with but cannot avoid. There is a moment of silence, heavy and pregnant with unspoken words, as they stand face to face. The tension between them is palpable, the air crackling with history. Geralt's first instinct is to turn away, to push her out of his life once again. But something about the way she looks at him keeps him rooted to the spot. Yennefer's presence reminds him of everything he once wanted and everything he cannot have. And for a moment, it feels as if the entire world is holding its breath, waiting for one of them to speak, to break the silence. But it is not the time for old wounds. Yennefer is here for a reason, one that concerns Ciri. She has heard whispers, seen signs, and the prophecy that binds Ciri to her future is something that cannot be ignored. For a moment, it is as though time stops. The world outside of their small group ceases to exist, and Geralt is left facing the woman he once loved and the child he now must protect, both bound to a fate that he cannot escape. The conversation between Geralt and Yennefer is not easy. Words are exchanged, some harsh, some soft, but all carrying the weight of years that have passed since their last meeting. Yennefer speaks of Ciri's power, of the ancient bloodlines that run through her veins, and of the prophecy that looms over them all. It is a prophecy that speaks of great destruction, of the clash of powers, and of the fate of entire kingdoms. Ciri's role in this prophecy is unclear, but it is undeniable. She is the key, the fulcrum upon which the fate of the world will balance, and everyone, every faction, every king, every sorcerer is watching her closely. The revelation weighs heavily on Geralt's shoulders. He had always known that Ciri's bloodline was special, that she was not an ordinary child, but the full extent of her destiny is something he had never fully understood until now. He had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that he could protect her from the world, from the monsters that hunted her, from the forces that sought to control her. But now, with Yennefer's words ringing in his ears, Geralt realizes that Ciri is not just a child to be protected. She is a force in her own right, and she must learn to navigate the darkness that surrounds her. Yennefer's role in Ciri's life is complicated. There is an undeniable connection between the two women, a bond forged in magic and destiny. And while Geralt may resent the way Yennefer has always kept her distance, he knows that the sorceress is the one person who can help Ciri understand the full extent of her powers. There is no time for personal grievances now. There is only the fight for survival, for Ciri's future, and for the uncertain world that lies ahead. The days pass in a blur, filled with strategy, preparation, and tense moments as the group moves toward their next destination. Along the way, they encounter more dangers, more monsters, both human and otherwise. Each one a reminder that the world is not kind to those who are different, to those who are marked by fate. Ciri's power grows stronger with each passing day, and so too does her understanding of the forces at play in her life. But she is still a child, still unprepared for the world that awaits her. Geralt can see it in her eyes, the uncertainty, the fear, the desire to find her place in a world that seems intent on destroying everything she holds dear. As they continue their journey, Geralt realizes that his role has changed. He is no longer just a witcher, a monster hunter, a mercenary. He is now something far more complicated. He is Ciri's protector, her guide, and he must help her navigate a world that is growing ever more dangerous with each passing day. His love for her is fierce, even if unspoken, and it is a love born not of blood, but of fate, a love that will carry them both through the darkness to come. But the road ahead is fraught with danger, and Geralt knows that the battles they must face will test not just their strength, but their very will to survive. He cannot shield Ciri from everything, but he can stand by her side, a constant in a world filled with uncertainty. Together, they must face what is to come, and together, they must confront the prophecy that haunts them both. The journey is far from over, but But Geralt knows that whatever the future holds, he will stand with Ciri, just as he always has. The landscape continues to stretch endlessly before them, filled with rugged hills and dark forests, the world around them constantly shifting between tranquility and danger. Geralt, ever the wanderer, has become accustomed to these sudden transitions. One moment, the quiet hum of nature; the next, the tension of an ambush or a hidden threat. He knows the world well enough to understand that even the most peaceful scenes often harbor darkness beneath the surface. Ciri, however, is still learning this lesson, her young mind trying to reconcile the idealistic view of the world with the harsh realities that begin to unfold more with every passing day. The girl's power continues to grow, and with it, the strain on Geralt's shoulders. His protective instincts, honed through years of battling monsters and facing the darker sides of humanity, now grapple with something even more complex: his duty to keep her safe from herself. Ciri's destiny has always been a murky concept, but it is becoming clear that her power, inherited from her elder bloodline, is far more dangerous than he ever imagined. Every moment she remains unaware of her true strength is a gift. Once she learns to harness it fully, the consequences could be catastrophic. It is a burden Geralt cannot escape, no matter how far they wander. The tension between them remains, unspoken but always there, like an invisible thread pulling them together and yet keeping them apart. Ciri, though a child, feels the gravity of her existence more than she lets on. She is no longer the naive girl Geralt once knew, but a young woman beginning to understand the enormity of the world and her place in it. Her power is not just a blessing, it is a curse, one that she will either embrace or be destroyed by. The reality of her future grows clearer with every passing moment, and the weight of it threatens to pull them both under. The day arrives when they find themselves at the edge of the swampy, desolate lands that seem to swallow everything in their path. It is a place that should not exist, where the forces of magic and decay twist together into something unnatural. The land feels alive, hostile in ways that make Geralt uneasy. Here, in this cursed place, they encounter a figure who will play a crucial role in shaping their journey: the sorceress, Yennefer. Yennefer's arrival is as sudden and inevitable as ever. The first sight of her, standing amidst the muck and mist, takes Geralt by surprise, even though he had known she would appear sooner or later. Her beauty, sharp and unyielding, is familiar and unsettling, stirring up a long-forgotten longing deep within him. Their shared history hangs in the air, and neither of them dares to acknowledge it. For a moment, the world around them disappears, and Geralt is once again confronted by the memories of their shared past, the love, the pain, and the broken promises. Yennefer does not linger on pleasantries. She is here for a reason, and that reason is Ciri. Her arrival is not a coincidence. Yennefer has come for the child, just as Geralt knew she would. Her eyes flicker with the knowledge of what Ciri is capable of, and for a brief moment, Geralt wonders whether Yennefer truly understands the scope of the girl's power. The bond between Yennefer and Ciri is complex, tied to prophecy, fate, and a force far beyond their control. But it is also personal. Yennefer's connection to Ciri is deeper than simple magic. It is a bond forged through shared experiences and the weight of a past they cannot escape. The conversation between Geralt and Yennefer is strained, their words cutting through the tension like knives. There is no warmth between them, not yet. The love they once shared has been buried under layers of regret and time, yet the undercurrent of attraction remains undeniable. It is not the love they once had, but it is something else, something perhaps even more dangerous. Their relationship has never been straightforward, and now, with Ciri in the picture, things are even more complicated. Yennefer is no longer just the woman Geralt loved. She is now a figure of power and authority, someone who can help Ciri understand her abilities, but someone who can also manipulate her for her own purposes. Despite their differences, there is a mutual understanding between Geralt and Yennefer. They both know that Ciri is not just a child to be protected, she is a force to be reckoned with. The power that flows through her veins is both a blessing and a curse, and as her guardians, they must make difficult decisions. For Geralt, those decisions are often filled with doubt and confusion. He has never been one to embrace destiny, to believe in prophecies. But Ciri's presence challenges everything he thought he knew about fate and the world. She is at the center of something much larger than all of them, something that will reshape the world as they know it. Yennefer, with all her wisdom and knowledge, is a valuable ally in this regard, but her motives are never entirely clear. She speaks of training Ciri, of guiding her through the tangled web of magic and politics that defines the world they live in. Yet, there is always a sense of something more beneath the surface. Yennefer has her own reasons for wanting to help Ciri, reasons that are tied not just to the prophecy, but to the sorceress's own complicated relationship with power and control. Geralt is not blind to this. He knows that Yennefer's involvement in Ciri's life is as much about her own desires as it is about protecting the girl. The tension between the three of them, Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri, is undeniable. Ciri, in particular, feels the pull of the past as she watches the two figures from her past collide. She does not fully understand the complexity of their relationship, but she senses the undercurrent of it. For her, it is a confusing time, filled with conflicting emotions, her future hanging by a thread. She does not want to be the center of attention, the person everyone is trying to protect, but it is impossible to ignore the gravity of her situation. The prophecy looms over her, the weight of it settling on her shoulders with every decision she makes. Geralt's role as Ciri's protector becomes ever more challenging. His love for the girl is deep, and his commitment to her safety is unwavering. But the stakes are higher now. He is no longer just shielding her from the dangers of the world. He is attempting to guide her through it, to help her understand the incredible power she wields and the responsibility that comes with it. As much as he tries to shield her from the chaos around them, there is no escaping the reality that her future is tied to something far beyond their control. Together, the three of them continue down the path set before them, each carrying the weight of their own choices, their own burdens. The tension between them is palpable, but there is also a sense of unity, however fragile. Their fates are intertwined, and though the road ahead is fraught with danger, they are bound by something deeper, something that neither time nor distance can erase. In this world of monsters and magic, survival is never guaranteed, but as long as they stand together, there is hope. As they continue their journey, Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer find themselves pulled deeper into a web of intrigue and danger, one that grows more complex with each passing day. Their interactions are increasingly strained as each individual grapples with their own role in the larger tapestry of fate that surrounds them. The unresolved tension between Geralt and Yennefer remains a quiet undercurrent as their old wounds bleed into the present, complicating their decisions, their alliances, and their emotions. Yet even as the rift between them widens, they are forced to work together for Ciri's sake. The presence of Ciri is ever more pressing. She is not the child who can be kept in the dark or protected by simple shields. Her burgeoning powers are undeniable, and though Geralt does his best to keep her grounded and safe, there is a sense that their journey is rapidly approaching its inevitable confrontation. The girl is both an innocent and a harbinger of great change, and her destiny, shaped by prophecies, bloodlines, and events beyond their control, remains a dark and elusive force. Geralt, in his heart, struggles to reconcile the fierce protector he's become with the man who has spent so much of his life running from fate. He is a witcher, a killer of monsters, but even he cannot escape the knowledge that there are forces at play that he cannot control. His personal bond with Ciri is more than just that of a father figure. He feels a deep, almost unbearable responsibility toward her, one that grows with every choice they make. The weight of what's at stake is ever present, even in moments when the tension between him and Yennefer eases into something more familiar, more dangerous. The days pass, and their journey takes them through cities and villages, each more complicated and hostile than the last. Their presence is felt wherever they go, as people whisper of the Witcher, the sorceress, and the girl who is destined for something far greater. But it is in the quiet moments, when they rest by campfires, or seek refuge from the cold winds, that Geralt is reminded of the life he once led. These are the fleeting moments when his thoughts turn to the simpler days, before the girl's destiny had fully taken root, before he had been tangled in the grand and terrible narrative of the world. Yet even in those moments, he knows that escape is not possible. There is no going back, no leaving this road they've been forced to walk. Yennefer, too, is caught in her own struggle. The years have hardened her, her desires becoming tangled with her power and her need for control. Her bond with Ciri is not purely that of a protector. It is one built on something more profound. Yennefer sees in Ciri the potential for greatness, the raw energy of the elder bloodline that could elevate her to a place of unimaginable power. But Yennefer also sees the danger that this power represents, and the risk it poses not just to the girl, but to the world. The decision to train Ciri, to shape her into the woman she could become, is fraught with complications. Yennefer's past, marked by loss and longing, shapes her choices, even as she remains determined to protect the girl from the darker side of the world, even as she seeks to manipulate Ciri's destiny for her own ends. For Ciri, the journey is one of self-discovery, of realizing the weight of her bloodline and the prophecy that is woven around her. She is no longer the child lost in a world of shadows. She is learning to navigate the terrifying landscape of power magic and the consequences of every choice she makes. She senses more and more that the people around her, Geralt and Yennefer, are not just guardians, but also players in a much larger game. Ciri is a key, a symbol, and perhaps even a weapon in the ongoing struggle that is shaping the future of the world. But it is in the moments when the world's dangers press the hardest, when the bonds between them are tested to the limit, that the trio begins to see the full scope of the forces they are up against. Their journey is not just about survival. It is about navigating the treacherous waters of prophecy, magic, and fate, where every decision carries the potential to reshape everything they know. It is in these moments, when all seems lost, that the question of destiny becomes impossible to ignore. Geralt's sense of duty to Ciri grows ever more intense, as does his fear that he may not be enough to protect her. His relationship with Yennefer grows more complicated, and the two of them are drawn closer together, each aware of the fragility of their situation. In many ways, their strained, even tumultuous, bond becomes a microcosm of the larger world they inhabit, filled with tension, complexity, and a constant push and pull between past mistakes and the hope for a better future. Though they clash, there are moments when they find a rare, fleeting connection, a brief understanding that reminds them of the deeper affection that still exists between them. Ciri, for her part, is becoming more and more aware of the forces surrounding her. She is no longer the innocent child she once was. The power that courses through her veins is undeniable, and with it comes the understanding that she has a role to play in a story that is far beyond her comprehension. At times, this power is a burden she cannot bear. At others, it is the only thing that might save her. She struggles to find her place between the worlds of Geralt, the witcher who raised her, and Yennefer, the sorceress who now guides her. Neither of them can truly shield her from the truth of what she is, or from the immense weight of her own power. In their quiet moments, Geralt and Yennefer come to terms with the reality of their situation. They are both bound by their love for Ciri, and both driven by a desire to protect her. Yet even as they are united in their mission, their relationship continues to be tested by the past, by their fears, and by the crushing weight of fate that looms over them. The unspoken feelings between them, complicated by years of distance and hurt, continue to color their interactions. As they move forward, it is impossible to ignore the role destiny plays in their lives. It is a force they cannot escape, no matter how hard they try. And with every step, they are reminded that the world is changing, and that Ciri's place in it is yet to be fully revealed. She is the key to something far greater than any of them could understand, and though they may not know what that future holds, they are all connected to it in ways that none of them can control. As Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri continue their journey, the complexities of their relationships deepen, shaped by their pasts, their responsibilities, and the growing awareness of the destiny that looms over them. Ciri, now fully aware of the weight of her bloodline and the power it grants her, finds herself torn between the protection of Geralt, who has become a father figure to her, and Yennefer, whose guidance promises to unlock the vast potential of her magic. Both mentors are invaluable in different ways, but the path that Ciri must walk is unclear and fraught with danger. The growing sense of tension among the trio reflects the deeper undercurrents of the world around them, one where prophecy, blood, and power intertwine in ways that none can easily escape. Geralt, ever the reluctant hero, finds himself again questioning the role he has been forced to take. The Witcher's life, defined by the slaying of monsters and the silence of his emotions, is increasingly unsatisfactory as the stakes of their journey rise. His paternal feelings for Ciri, which have grown since he first took her under his care, are now undeniable. In her, he sees not just a child to be protected, but a person whose fate will shape the future of their world. Though he wishes to shelter her from the dangers that threaten, Geralt is keenly aware that her destiny is not something that can be avoided or erased. The very forces that tie them together seem insurmountable. And as his journey with Ciri and Yennefer continues, he finds himself questioning whether he has the strength to truly protect her from the overwhelming fate that awaits. At the same time, Yennefer's role becomes more critical. As both a powerful sorceress and a mother figure to Ciri, Yennefer grapples with the weight of her decisions, driven by both her desires for control and her love for Ciri. She has spent much of her life pushing others away, seeking autonomy in a world that seeks to control her. But in Ciri, she sees something different, something worth fighting for, even if that means surrendering her own sense of agency. There are moments when she believes that she can mold Ciri into something far greater than anyone has ever imagined. But there is also a tension in her heart, a fear that the girl she is trying to shape may become a force beyond her control. Yennefer's relationship with Geralt remains just as complex, a mixture of love, rivalry, and shared history. As they work together to guide Ciri, their unresolved emotions continue to affect their decisions, creating a dynamic that is as volatile as it is crucial. For Ciri, the growing awareness of her power is both empowering and terrifying. She has always known she was different, but as she trains with Yennefer and learns more about the magic that runs through her veins, she begins to understand just how important her bloodline truly is. Her powers seem to have no limit, but with that realization comes an overwhelming responsibility. She is not simply a girl caught in the middle of a storm. She is at the very heart of it, and everyone around her has their own ideas about what her role should be. The tension between Geralt's protective nature and Yennefer's ambition to train her is a constant point of friction for Ciri, and she is torn between the two. On the one hand, Geralt represents a safety she's never had. His gruff exterior masks a deep care that she relies on. But Yennefer represents something else, a glimpse into the future. A future where Ciri could harness her power in ways that are beyond even her comprehension. As they move deeper into the complexities of their world, Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri are faced with the growing reality that the forces of fate are much larger than they are. The world is shifting, and a great conflict is brewing. A conflict that Ciri will play a central role in. Though Geralt continues to try to protect her from the weight of her destiny, it becomes increasingly clear that Ciri is not a mere bystander in this war. Her connection to the elder bloodline, the mysterious force that has coursed through her veins since birth, marks her as a key figure in the future of the continent. But that future is uncertain, and there are many forces, both seen and unseen, who seek to control or destroy her. One of the most dangerous figures who emerges in this part of the story is the enigmatic and malevolent figure of the Wild Hunt. This ghostly group of riders, who are rumored to be fated to bring doom to the world, begin to make their presence known. Their appearance signals a shift in the balance of power and a darker future for Ciri. As the Wild Hunt closes in, Geralt and Yennefer's protective instincts become even more pronounced. They are now not just trying to safeguard Ciri's future, but are actively working to keep her from the forces that would use her for their own ends. Despite their best efforts, it becomes clear that there is no easy path forward. The trio is constantly on the move, trying to stay ahead of the threats that follow them. Yet even in their flight, there are moments of quiet reflection where they are forced to face the realities of the world they inhabit. Ciri, for all her power, is still a child in many ways, and Geralt and Yennefer are still learning how to balance their conflicting desires to protect her and prepare her for the destiny she cannot escape. But it is the deepening bond between the three of them that begins to emerge as the true core of the story. It is not just the unfolding of Ciri's powers or the dangers of the world that holds their attention. It is the way their love for one another, though tested, continues to evolve. In many ways, their journey is less about fighting monsters and more about confronting the things that they fear most, their own emotions, the choices they must make, and the cost of their sacrifices. The story is not just one of magic and war, but also of the human condition, the ways in which we are all shaped by love, by fear, and by the ever-looming shadow of destiny. And as the trio ventures deeper into the unknown, they realize that no matter how far they run, there is no escaping the truth that Ciri is at the heart of a storm that will change everything. As the storm of destiny gathers strength around Ciri, Geralt, and Yennefer, the tension between them grows more palpable. The weight of their shared history, the complexities of their relationships, and the looming fate of the world become increasingly difficult to ignore. Geralt, who has always carried the burden of his profession, the Witcher's curse of being an outsider and a solitary figure, now finds that his role has evolved in ways he never anticipated. His connection to Ciri, once a matter of simple protection, has deepened into something much more significant. She is no longer just a charge for him to guard. She is a part of his soul, a daughter of sorts, a bond he cannot sever, even if he tried. Yennefer, too, is facing the reality of her choices. A woman who has spent much of her life seeking control, fighting against the constraints imposed on her by society, and pursuing her own desires, now finds herself at the mercy of something far beyond her comprehension. Her magic, once a tool of personal empowerment, becomes something much more dangerous when it is used to shape the destiny of another. She sees Ciri as the key to her own future, the chance to shape a new world. But she also fears that her ambition could cost her the very thing she cherishes most. There are moments when Yennefer's desire for control clashes with her deep, underlying love for Ciri, creating a rift that cannot be easily healed. Despite their differences, the bond between Yennefer and Ciri remains strong, anchored by a love that transcends magic and manipulation. But it is Ciri, the central figure of the story, who is most profoundly affected by the events unfolding around her. She is a girl caught in the center of a world that seems determined to tear her apart. On one side, she has Geralt, a protector who loves her like a father, but is unable to shield her from the inevitable path that fate has set for her. On the other side, she has Yennefer, who sees in Ciri not just a daughter, but a powerful ally who could shape the future of their world. Ciri is torn between these two forces, each of them pulling her in different directions, each of them offering a different vision of her destiny. As the wild hunt looms ever closer, the tension intensifies. Ciri, whose bloodline is steeped in ancient power, is the target of this spectral group of riders, whose ominous presence promises doom for both her and the world. It becomes clear that the prophecy, which has hung over Ciri since her birth, is not just a vague legend, it is an unavoidable truth. She cannot escape the weight of her destiny, no matter how much Geralt or Yennefer try to shield her. The realization of this truth weighs heavily on her. And as she faces the full scope of her powers and the responsibility they entail, she begins to understand that there is no way forward without confronting the forces that seek to control her. The wild hunt, who had once seemed like distant myths, now appear as the very real embodiment of destruction and chaos. They are relentless, driven by an insatiable need to capture Ciri and harness the power that lies within her. The closer they get to her, the more Geralt and Yennefer are forced to acknowledge the magnitude of the threat they face. Though Geralt has faced countless monsters in his life, this is not a battle he can fight with swords or magic alone. The Wild Hunt represents an existential threat, one that cannot be overcome with physical strength or even the deepest knowledge of magic. It is a fight that will require all of their strength, all of their willpower, and all of the sacrifices they can make for the one person who holds the fate of the world in her hands. Despite the growing peril, Geralt and Yennefer continue to hold onto the hope that they can protect Ciri, even as the odds become increasingly insurmountable. They find themselves at a crossroads, facing a reality where the only way to ensure Ciri's safety may be to let go of their own desires and relinquish control. Geralt, who has always fought to maintain some semblance of agency in a world that constantly demands his obedience, must now confront the fact that his greatest battle is not with monsters, but with the very forces that seek to tear apart the family he has fought so hard to protect. Yennefer, too, must reckon with the fact that her ambitions for Ciri may not be as aligned with the girl's own desires as she once thought. In these final moments, the true power of Ciri's bloodline is revealed. She is not just the key to a prophecy or a weapon to be wielded in a war. She is a symbol of the future, of the possibility for change, and of the hope that the world can be shaped by those who dare to defy fate. Her journey, though painful and fraught with peril, is one of self-discovery and growth. Ciri is not simply a passive character being swept along by the tide of destiny. She is an active participant in the shaping of her own fate. In choosing to embrace her powers, rather than running from them, she demonstrates the true strength of her character. The final confrontation with the Wild Hunt is a moment of reckoning for all involved. Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri are forced to confront the consequences of their actions and the choices they have made. It is not just a battle for survival, but a battle for identity and for the future of the world itself. As the Wild Hunt closes in, it is revealed that the key to overcoming them lies not in brute strength or magical might, but in understanding the true nature of power and its relationship to destiny. The events of the story culminate in a dramatic showdown that forces each character to make difficult decisions, sacrifices, and compromises in order to secure a future that is not dictated by the forces of prophecy and fate. In the end, the story of Sword of Destiny is not just one of action and adventure. It is a story about the complexities of relationships, the struggle to reconcile personal desires with the demands of the world, and the ultimate search for freedom in a world governed by fate. Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri each learn that destiny is not something to be feared or avoided. It is something to be understood, and when necessary, challenged. The story ends not with a final resolution, but with a sense of continuation. The future remains uncertain, but there is hope. Ciri's journey is far from over, and while the world may remain a place of danger and chaos, there is also the possibility of change, redemption, and transformation. The legacy of the Witcher, the sorceress, and the Child of Surprise is not one of triumph over evil, but one of resilience, love, and the enduring fight for a future that belongs to them all. The conclusion of Sword of Destiny offers a moment of reflection. As the journey of Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri comes to a poignant, unresolved close. While the story may not offer neat resolutions to the dilemmas faced by its characters, it provides a powerful exploration of destiny, identity, and choice. At the heart of the narrative is the struggle between the forces that seek to control fate and the individuals who seek to shape their own destinies. Through Geralt's unwavering sense of duty, Yennefer's complex ambitions, and Ciri's transformation into a figure of immense power, the book delves into the human condition, what it means to live under the weight of prophecy, and what it means to break free from it. Geralt, the Witcher, is defined not just by the battles he fights or the monsters he slays, but by the personal struggles that define him, his emotional turmoil, his doubts, and his unyielding love for those he holds dear. Despite the external forces pulling him in different directions, Geralt's journey is a deeply internal one, as he grapples with his role as both protector and guardian of a destiny that is not his own. His struggles serve as a mirror to the human experience, one of grappling with the forces beyond one's control, while seeking meaning in a world full of chaos and uncertainty. Yennefer's arc brings complexity to the idea of power and sacrifice. A woman who has spent much of her life attempting to reshape the world to her will, Yennefer comes to realize that true power is not just about control. It is also about letting go. Her relationship with Ciri forces her to confront her own desires and ambitions, and in the end, she must accept that love is a far more powerful force than magic. Yennefer's story is one of growth and self-discovery, as she learns to value what truly matters beyond her own personal aspirations. Ciri's transformation, perhaps the most significant of all, is a journey of self-realization. A girl caught between competing desires, prophecies, and the burdens of her lineage, she ultimately discovers her own strength and the true meaning of her power. Her struggle is not just to survive, but to understand the choices she must make in a world that demands everything from her. Ciri embodies the tension between the inevitable and the choices one can still make, and her journey serves as a reminder that destiny, while powerful, is never as fixed as it may seem. At its core, Sword of Destiny is about the messy, complicated nature of relationships. It is about love, loss, sacrifice, and the lengths to which one will go for those they care about. The intricate dynamics between Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri create a web of emotional complexity that is the true heart of the story. Each of them is shaped by their own desires and experiences, but together they form a family, bound not by blood, but by their shared struggles and aspirations. In conclusion, Andrzej Sapkowski's Sword of Destiny is a rich, multi-layered tale that transcends the typical fantasy genre. While it features monsters, sorcery, and prophecies, it is the emotional depth of its characters and their intricate relationships that make the story resonate. The struggles they face are not just those of a fantasy world. They are deeply human struggles about love, fate, and the search for meaning in a world that often seems beyond control. As the story of Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri unfolds, it leaves the reader with a sense of both closure and anticipation. The characters may have made their choices, but their journey is far from over. The future is uncertain, and while fate may play a significant role, it is ultimately the choices of these individuals, their resilience, their love, and their courage that will shape what is to come. This book is not just a bridge to the larger Witcher saga. It is a testament to the complexity of life, the power of personal agency, and the enduring human spirit, all set against the backdrop of a world full of magic, monsters, and endless possibilities.